Hello guys, welcome back to Learn Music Theory with Nathan. Today's episode is on the treble clef. Now we're going to look at mastering the treble clef in just a few steps, okay? So this is going to help you accelerate your ability to read music that's written in the treble clef, as well as in your own playing, if you are to decipher what's been written down. Okay, let's do a quick recap. The treble clef is also known as the G clef. Why? Well, because the start of the loop here in this symbol, I'll make this a bit bigger for you, right here, the second line from the bottom, all right, that loop starts on the line G. Okay, so this line here is a G, therefore it's the G clef. Just a little bit of useless information for you there. Okay, so the treble clef, what's it used for? Well, it's a device for composers and musicians to understand. It's a bit bigger. There we go. So this symbol here is to guide the composer if they're writing for a certain type of instrument. Okay, so we have harp, we have the flute, we have the right hand of a piano player, we have female voice, we have acoustic and electric guitar is written in the treble clef, we have the trumpet, said flute before, but most high-pitched instruments are written in the treble clef, okay, because as we spoke about in the first video, Music Theory for Beginners, it was all this idea about the musical alphabet. Alright, so higher pitched notes of that alphabet are written in the treble clef. Alright, so let's now look into a bit of the nitty-gritty. Each line or space we have here on the treble clef, space here, line, space, etc., refers to or corresponds to a particular note of the musical alphabet. Okay, so it's the job of a musician to essentially look at what's been written down here, decipher what that means, find it on their instrument, and then play it. Okay, I've just described reading music in a nutshell. Depending on what type of note, okay, we see here these are crotchets, which last for one beat. There are many other notes that composers can put here in the spaces or the lines. Depending on where they place these circles, they're simply asking you to play that note on your instrument, okay, or sing that note if you're a vocalist. So when teaching younger students, myself included as a music teacher, what we tend to do is we use some mnemonics, okay, which are little rhymes. Get this out of the way, which help to make this understandable for a younger audience. Okay, in the treble clef, when you have the notes in the spaces, we have here, 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 and here. All right, so there's 4. That corresponds with the notes F, A, C, and E, which conveniently spell face. Okay, so face in the space. That's how we usually teach that one, or at least how I teach that one. And a key rule when we're using the treble clef as well is we're always counting from the bottom up. Okay, we always go from the bottom upwards. That's something good to keep in mind. That's the spaces. Now, because we have a 5-line stave here, a set of 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there therefore exists spaces that will be between those lines. Okay, so we have 5 lines and 4 spaces. So we've got the 4 spaces noted out. So we need the 5 lines now, and they correspond to the following notes: E, G, B, D, and F. And keen observers will see that I've gone from 4/4 to 5/4. Reason being is with this program sometimes to make it clear, I wanted to get all 5 in the 1 bar line, so I had to make it a 5/4 bar. All right, if you've got any Sibelius tutorial links that you'd be able to send me, that would be much appreciated. Pop it in the comments box. Okay, so we've got the spaces and the lines. So there are the pitches. Okay, that's basically how we teach young children to memorize where the pitches of music, of the musical alphabet, where they are. Okay, and we do face in the space for the spaces, and the lines. The lines is usually some variation of every good boy deserves fruit, something like that. Every good boy deserves football, you know, whatever you want to say. But the idea is to have a simple rhyme to understand and remember where the notes are. Okay, so let's look now. I'm going to zoom out slowly here. So we have the natural notes, as we call them, okay, spaces and the lines. Before we go to sharps and flats, I want to broach the topic of ledger lines. Okay, now ledger lines are notes that fall below or above the stave. Okay, now we have 5 lines here. Instead of drawing a 6th line here all the way across, or a 7th line all the way across here, we draw what we call ledger lines, which are a very small little line here, and that still helps us to represent a certain pitch of the musical alphabet. Okay. Now the key thing with reading music or writing music down using this kind of thing is we want to make it easy to read, as easy as possible. Hence why we have a small little line there rather than this massive line, because that would just not be easy to read at all. Now these notes here obviously correspond to those below pitches and above pitches, but that gives you an idea that we have these ledger lines, okay? Because we do have notes that fall below and those that are above the stave as well. So we need a way to notate that, or we need to a way that we can write that down as instructions. Because as I'll get to at the end, all music, writing, reading, sheet music is just a set of instructions. If you follow this channel, you would have seen the first video where I spoke about the musical alphabet, okay? And you have what's called enharmonic equivalents, or notes that are enharmonic, okay? So that refers to one note, two different names. Exactly the same pitch, but it's written and spoken differently. Separate notes, but they sound the same. I know it's a bit confusing, but go with me on this one, okay? So we have this idea of sharp notes. Let's imagine a piano keyboard, okay? You're at C, right, to the left of the two black keys. You go up to the first black key, that's a C sharp, because you're coming from that C. Okay? Now this same note here, of course this is actually an A sharp, I'm in bass clef land because I've been doing a fair bit of bass practice recently, but the idea is this is sharpening, you're going up, you're ascending, okay? And if you were to go from the next white note on the piano, so you've started on C, you've gone to C sharp, you go to the next white note, that's a D. If you were to start there and go backwards, again to that first black note, it's actually also known as a D flat. Okay, C sharp, D flat. Okay, so if you are not familiar with those, go back to the I think it was the first first video I posted on this channel, which was the New to Music Theory ABC Beginners Start Here. Yeah, what we have here is how we notate this. Now this is where music theory gets a little bit, come on, really? Why are you doing it this way? All right, don't sort of spam the comments box. It just is the way it is. Okay, when music is written down, the sharp or flat symbol is written before the note, like so. So this is an A sharp, okay, or a C sharp in the bass clef, but that's for a different video. So this tells the musician that this note here needs to be sharpened. Okay, that's an A sharp. Same with the flats. Is this little lowercase b symbol. Okay, so that's the flat symbol. So that's how they look. So again, there are sharps and flat notes, and they're what we call natural notes as well. And they all share the same position, or at least the same space, which is this stave. Okay, so they need to all fit on there. So what I've done is I've put a little thing here which is all together. All right, now you might be thinking, whoa, what is this? So what I've done is I've put well, not all notes of course, but a vast majority of the notes. We've got E, 3 lines below the stave, and etc. We have all the sharp, flat, and natural notes on the treble clef. Okay, now keeping in mind we've just spoken that sharps and flats are the same, so these two notes here are exactly the same pitch, sound exactly the same, but are written differently. Okay, it all depends on what key you're in, it all depends on that kind of thing. Alright, but this is just to show you, plain and simple, that they exist. Okay, I'd probably be doing a bit of a disservice if I didn't show you all the possible notes. Okay, and obviously we could go all the way up to 4 or 5 ledger lines above the stave up here, but I've just gone to this B flat up here. Alright, so that's that all together. Now why am I showing you this? Well, the key thing I want to explain to you today is to help you work out these notes, okay? Because the video title is obviously Master the Treble Clef. Okay, so there are 2 ways that you can do it. One is by following this rhyme or mnemonic approach. Okay, so if you want to remember where the notes are in the spaces, you just remember the word face. Really simple, face in the space. That's why we teach it to young kids. Okay, you could also do the same thing with the lines. Every good boy deserves fruit, or some variation of that. Okay, you'll also notice, here's the key thing. Within this approach, we have letters that we're actually skipping. Okay, so we're skipping a letter. There should be a G there, but there's not. A, C, E. Okay, F to A, there's a note missing in between. A to C, there's a note missing in between. C to E, there's a note missing in between as well. So that's a way you can do it. Just skip a letter. If you start on the lowest space, the next space is going to be not the next letter up, but the next one again, because you're skipping. Okay, that's one way to approach it. If you have young children at home that are just starting to learn piano potentially, or are at school and are wanting to get a bit of a kickstart with this, that's probably the best approach to use for little kids because it's a rhyme. Hey, every good boy deserves fruit. You know, face in the space. Kids can understand that and retain it. It's a bit more, has a bit more life to it, shall we say. Okay, so another approach you can use is a bit more of a methodical, logical, dare I say, adult approach. And what I mean by that, of course, is let's take, you look at these two pictures, you'll see E, G, B, D, F, and then you'll see the spaces. If we were to merge them together, you would be able to understand the concept, I'm sure, that it will go E, F, because it's the first line of the space. First line of the space, good one, Nathan. This is the first note in the space. E, F, G, A, second space, B, C, D, E, F. That's another way to look at it, okay? Now what I used to do is I would have one note as a reference point. And I clicked in my head that the very next position on the stave, whether that was a line or a space, would be the next letter up in the alphabet. On the other side of the coin, the next one going down was the letter back in the alphabet, if that makes sense. So if I use this as my reference point, okay, this is an E note. I know that there's two notes either side of that. You could put a note in the first space. That's an F. You could also put a note in the space below, or behind it, before it. That's a D. So it's important to grasp when you're reading the treble clef as well. When you see notes ascending like this, going up in this direction, we are ascending through the alphabet just like we speak. Okay, so E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. You can kind of understand where I'm going to go with this one. If we were to flip it round and we were going to go downwards, for example here, okay, so it's a D sharp, there's your G sharp, there's your F sharp. We're going backwards. D, C, B, A, G, F. Okay, just a couple of little tricks to help you with this thing here. If you take nothing else from this video, I want you to take the following. All of this stuff here is simply a tool for composers or people who write music to give to musicians who perform the music a set of clear, easy to understand and execute instructions. Okay? It's a roadmap, it's a recipe, it's directions. It's saying to the musician, play a C note, play a B note, and then play a high A, and then play a high C on your instrument. Because we're in the treble clef, they're going to be higher pitched instruments. Thanks guys, hope that makes sense. If anything is unclear, or if you want me to clarify anything, or if there's anything you'd like me to make a video on, please let me know in the comment section box, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.